welcome to the channel. Today we've got another radio repair here, and again I apologise for any noise in the background that you might hear or any strange jump cuts, because the renovations and stuff are still ongoing next door, so you might hear like the radio that they've got or thumping or drilling or whatever. I'll try and cut it out as best I can. Anyway, we've got 3 radios here that I picked up from Facebook Marketplace. Now, Facebook Marketplace is not normally a place I get radios from because everything's a bit few and far between on Facebook Marketplace. Sometimes people they're not on there, or people just want too much money for them. Like there was one person trying to sell some untested tape decks for like 25 quid each, and I'm like, I'm not paying that much each for all of them when they could all be broken. So, you know, I offered 50 quid for the lot of them, and I haven't heard anything back because I'm just like, I'm not paying 25 quid each. Nah, like they should be more like 10 or less each. If they showed that they turned on or whatever, then yeah, maybe I'd be interested. But the amount of things I've bought over the years that have been expensive and not worked, I don't make that mistake. If people want too much money for something like this, I don't do it. Whereas this was 12 quid for the lot, and that's far more reasonable. So if any of these are dead, I haven't wasted that much money. But without further ado, let's have a look at them. So, what have we got here in front of us? We appear to have a radio from an LDV. I don't know if this came from an LDV Pilot, an LDV Cub. I'm not sure exactly. It would have come from something like that, I imagine. A Philips 760, which was the main reason I went to go get this, because I'm a weirdo and I collect lots of Philips tape decks and stuff like that. As you'll see, I've got a decent Philips collection starting. And this caught my eye because I don't think I've really seen one of these very often. This is like an early 80s Philips unit. From a little look inside, it might not even be the P6 mechanism, which might mean I can actually fix this one, which would be super cool. And then underneath it is a Ford radio, which looks a little bit like one you'd get in a Fiesta, Granada, I don't know, maybe a very early Sierra. Don't know if I'll end up keeping this. I may end up selling this one if I can get it working or whatever. If not, it'll stay for parts. Or I may end up keeping it, you know, in case I ever get an 80s Ford. I haven't yet decided, but either way, it's here. Let's have a look at them and start taking them apart and see what they do. Right, so I'll start with the bottom one first. This is a Ford radio. I'm not sure who makes this one. Maybe Blaupunkt, maybe Philips, not sure yet. Let's see if we can find any clues on top. Doesn't seem to be anything on top. 92, I can't imagine that's the date. Doesn't look like a Ford stereo from 92. Seems to have like a more modern Ford like radio slot thing there, which is interesting. I don't like the fact that someone's put their own wires in there. Like, because this is a DIN socket, which was quite typical of sort of the 1980s and stuff like that. This was what predated ISO, you know, the blocks that came afterwards. Like, these are all DIN connections. So this is what they had in the 80s and I suppose early 90s as well. But yeah, someone appears to have done their own wiring to this. Not a huge fan of that. Okay, so there's the part number. It appears to be made in Brazil, because I know Brazil got a lot of very wacky Ford cars that we never got, which I'd love to get one day. A bit like the Ford Versailles. That was like a weird VW Passat thing. But yeah, I guess let's have a look and try and get these wires out and do something with it. It looks like this just pries open. It's obviously been opened before because there's meant to be screws there and there isn't. So in classic Dank Pods fashion, we can say someone's been in here, because they very much have. There we go. Have we got a date on the cassette motor? Not that I can see. Looks a bit like a... Oh, it's a Nippon motor, okay. 2400 RPM, 13 volt, obviously, because it's a car one. NAM 5F. I'm not sure I've ever seen one of those motors before. Doesn't look like we're going to get a date on this motor. It says 40/21/55, so maybe 1980. Fourth week of 1980, possibly. Not sure. I mean, that would possibly add up. It's very densely packed in here. That mechanism looks a little bit like a Philips one, possibly. I'm not sure. We'll have to start taking it apart and having a look. Annoyingly, it looks like I might have to end up desoldering things, which I'm not a big fan of. I hate when I have to desolder things. There's the tuning capacitors, which should move when I do this. Yep, you can see them pulling it out. That's what essentially tunes your radio station. These are essentially variable capacitors, and you just change the capacitance value, and That's what gets you radio stations. It's pretty clever. I don't like the fact there's... Oh, I thought that was a loose wire. It just seems to be a strand of the tape, which has very much turned to dust. I guess I need to figure out how to open this. It doesn't look very obvious, I must admit. There's no obvious kind of like screw hole or anything. Oh, am I really going to have to desolder stuff just to look in this damn thing? Are you kidding me? Like, what's all this wiring about as well? Like, this doesn't... Oh, God, someone's very much been in here. Why, though? I don't understand. These are just normal DIN sockets. Like, these connectors have been available since probably the 70s, really. I don't know why somebody did what they did to this thing. I don't even trust that they've done it correctly, you know? I mean, I assume we've got positive and ground coming out the top there, but I have DIN connectors, so I don't need to do this. So I'm going to end up having to desolder them, I suppose, and see if it still fits a normal DIN connector. Yeah, I'm going to have to end up... I suppose I could just rip these wires out. Because I really don't like the fact they're here. Oh, that one's actually been, quote-unquote, strain relieved around the metal. Apologies for the camera work. What the heck is going on here? How am I going to get... Have I really got to desolder this? Are you kidding me? I'm probably running out of desoldering braid as well. I may end up having to leave this one, because this looks like it's going to be a lot of effort to get into this. Oh, it does have normal screws at the bottom. I will be honest with you now, I'm probably not going to mess with this stereo too much, because it's a bit of a mess at the moment. I may end up having to do something with this on camera, because I feel like this... I may have to do something with this off camera or whatever. I almost feel like this thing's an entire video in itself. Like, what a mess. What a mess. Yeah, this may end up being something I do off camera and summarizing at some point. Maybe in a future video where I look at different tape decks, I can do an update and say, you know, what happened to the Ford radio? Because, yeah, I just don't like this. I don't want to spend the entire video on this one deck because we've got 3 to get through. So I apologize if this is the one you were the most excited for, but yeah, I'm not sure about this. It looks very messed with, which I'm not a big fan of. So yeah, for now, let's move on to something a bit more fruitful. Okay, so now we've got the LDV radio. So we've got the part number on top, LDV004, FM, medium wave, long wave, stereo radio cassette, and the pin out as well, which is quite useful, whether you've got a 4 system or a 2 speaker system. It says 50 watts TMP. What is TMP? I've never seen that before. Is that like top music power or something? Because it's normally PMPO, peak music power. That azimuth bit there looks very Philips. Yeah, this looks quite Philips to me. Possibly. I don't know why there was a computer wire attached to it. That's an older style radio loom as well, isn't it? Looks like the kind of loom you'd have got in the 1980s. It's not DIN or anything, it's just a multi-plug. I guess I'm going to have to figure out what this wiring is. That's fun. Well, these are both fused, so I assume one of these is power and memory. I guess I need to get my multimeter and see if black is ground. So let's see if black is ground. So the meter will beep whenever these touch. So if it happens to beep when I touch to the black cable, then we know that the black is in fact ground. And lo and behold, it does. So that's going to be nice and easy to get to turn on at least. And then we just have to figure out speaker outputs. Mind you, I just realised the wiring diagram does actually tell you the colours. So yes, yellow is the memory as I expected. Blue is the antenna motor. Yep, so far we're normal sort of ISO and even DIN colours. Antenna, red is your main power and black is earth. And then you've got white for the front left, white and black, front left positive. Okay, so most of this is pretty much the ISO layout and everything, so that's handy. Well, that's interesting. In a 2-speaker system, it says you need to bridge all the channel connections, which is funny because you don't normally do that. This must be a Class AB amplifier, because if you did that to a Class D amplifier and crossed its grounds, you could damage it. That's why I've made this little device here, which some of you may have noticed. It's not a proprietary thing or whatever, you know, I didn't design this. This is a circuit that you can find online. Essentially, this has some resistors in it to make sure that the grounds are separated, because tip, ring and sleeve, your normal 3.5mm jack, has a common ground. So that means all of the channels, i.e. all of the speakers, are grounded onto one ground plane. But if you ground all of the outputs from a Class D channel amplifier together, you can actually damage the Class D amplifier, because they are meant to be separate grounds. They are not designed to be common together. So that's why this thing exists, because it sort of splits it out and makes it act a little bit more like separate speakers, but still converts it to this. It's quite clever what this does, and it's a super simple circuit that I built very inexpensively quite a while ago now, in the beginning of 2023. So I have this whenever there's a Class D amplifier. And one way you can know if you've got a Class D amplifier is you can use a multimeter to measure between the two negative outputs of a channel. So for example, you'd measure between the left speaker negative and the right speaker negative. And if you get 0 ohms, then you know it's probably a Class AB. But if you don't get 0 ohms and you actually get a sort of ohmed out reading, then you know it's a Class D, and you must not cross the ground pins, because you can genuinely damage the amplifier. So this might be Class AB, because, yeah, it does seem to be joining them together, which is odd. Yeah, green, green, black. Yeah, it must be Class AB. Has it got a fader control on it? It does have a fader control. Maybe that's why they're asking you to do it together, so you wouldn't have to worry about fading. I don't know why my phone is very interested in things in the background rather than what's in front of it. Okay, so without further ado, let's get this happening. That's a massive bit of shrink tubing there. Massive bit of shrink tubing, goodness. Right, so let's see if we can snip away this insulation. There we go. On the plus side, I now have whatever this wiring loom is, so if I ever get another stereo that takes this this setup, I'm sorted, really. Wow, that is really in there. I'm going to have to keep snipping. I can't do the usual sort of pull that you can do, where you can sort of pull on the wire and then split it open. It doesn't seem to work very well with this one. Oh, there we go. That kind of got it. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of things off camera, I realise. Right, so we want the black. I'll keep the speaker channels out of the way, because at this point we're just trying to establish if it even works. Again, I can use the terminal block that I built for the other radio in the previous episode. We can just modify it. So which was power and ground? These two. So I'm going to common together the memory and ignition, because we're not testing the individual components at this point. We just want to see if it works. And there's a very good chance that if you don't hook the memory wire up, the stereo won't turn on. A lot of them don't. And that's actually caught me in the past, because I've had connections where the memory wire wasn't connecting very well, and the radio can just literally act as if it's dead. Like, it just won't work at all. So bear that in mind if you're ever trying to test a radio across a battery or a power supply. If it has a memory wire, you will need to hook it up to plus 12. So that's what we've done there. I've essentially commoned the memory and ignition wire together. Right, let's see if this dingus turns on. Let's get the LCD in view. If it does anything, maybe dim the lights down a little bit. That's a bit better. Let's see if it does anything. Yes, it is doing something. Looks like the backlight needs a bulb, as it's not lit up. The two dials have lit up though, with amber illumination. But as you can see, that does actually work. So I guess the next thing to see is if the amplifier works, and maybe if we can pick a station up with it. Right. As I say, my aerial doesn't really like picking up FM. I don't really know why, so I'll try and change to medium wave. Oh god, those controls. Those are horrific.
Peter Leeds and Gracie Nealon, absolutely magnificent.
There we go. The fade works. Oh wow. It actually has a removable faceplate. Look at that. Well, removable faceplate. It just stops the ability for you to use the buttons. You could quite easily get around that with sort of doing that out, but it would be quite inconvenient to do so. You'd be able to press a button, and as long as you knew where all these buttons were, you'd be able to press it. It does make it a little bit more prohibitive. Do we dare put my, let's try my, my fake tape here and see what it does. Oh, that's... Oh, it does actually do something. I don't know if this has auto-reverse. It does! Wow! Yeah, this actually has auto-reverse. That's neat. I say it's very difficult to see, but yeah, the auto-reverse is working. Okay. It's a bit stiff, so it will need some work. But good start, I suppose. Good start. I guess I need to try the tape adapter. Our old friend, the old OnePlus phone, and the Maxell cassette adapter are back again. So let's see what we can do with this. Same song again. Let's pop that in. It does work. Not bad. Very good. It's a very noisy tape mech though. Very noisy tape mech. And a very stiff tape mech as well, as I said. But the head's working. We've established that. I might have a look inside and see if we can get it to play a tape. That'd be pretty cool. So then, looking inside the tape door, can't really see a great deal going on in there. Oh, there you go. I can see a somewhat shiny looking pinch roller, so that'll be fun to have a look at. Don't know about the head and whatnot yet. That looks quite dirty. Let's take this apart though and have a look. But looking through the tape door is one way you can establish sort of at a glance, you know, what does the tape head look like? What does the pinch roller look like? So I always recommend people, especially if they can do it before buying or whatnot, just open the door, have a little look in there, have a little look down there, see what the pinch roller, which is that black thing there, the little black rubber roller, and the tape head, which is the big silver thing in the middle. Just see what that looks like, because that'll give you an idea if it's going to be any good to actually play a tape or not. Just because it can play an aux adapter doesn't mean it'll play a tape properly. All the aux adapter does is just tell me that the tape head works, not that it's in good condition. Definitely quite the connector on this thing, and was quite the thing to separate. But without any further ado, let's have a little look inside. It looks like we've got to take this off. Oh, no, that's the security thing that I've just taken off. Wonderful. We've got one screw at the back. These don't seem to be different. That's good. Try not to lose it off to the side there. I think that's the only screw I have to take out. The rest is just pry. Come on, there we go. And we're in. As I said, I didn't need to take that other screw off a minute ago. It turns out it was for the security tab. It's nice to see a replaceable one, because it looks a lot like the security tab that Sony's have, but they almost always bend and they're riveted on. There we go, it's all back on now. So what mechanism have we got here? That doesn't look like Phillips to me. That almost looks a bit like some kind of tension mechanism, possibly. It's got a quad head. The head looks like it's actually in decent shape. Let's have a look together. So the head at the first glance looks in pretty good shape. It looks pretty shiny. It doesn't look too worn. That pinch roller looks like it might clean up. What about the other pinch roller? I'll get some light in. Yeah, again, it's not too bad. I reckon we could put a cleaning tape through it and actually see if it'll play a tape. Because this mechanism, other than that, doesn't look too bad, look. Yeah, that's pretty okay. Alright. Right, what I'm about to do should be a little bit more effective than a cleaning tape, especially for the first time around. I'm going to get a cotton swab here, which is one of these, and I'm going to wet it with isopropyl alcohol, 99.9%, and we'll clean the head just so that's nice and clean. I should be able to push this and get it to engage. No? Really? Oh, there we go. Oh, the pinch roller's not engaging. Is that because there isn't a tape in there? Can it actually properly detect the presence of a tape? The pinch roller didn't actually pinch. No, the pinch rollers are not engaging properly at all. Oh no, they are. Wow, they actually need a tape. Otherwise they won't engage properly. Let me tell you what I mean. So if I take this out and do this again, you'll notice that the pinch rollers are actually not touching the capstan, which is this post here. And obviously they're supposed to, because that's what actually pulls the tape along and regulates its speed. But if you look, they don't actually sit. Whereas if you put that in, which obviously emulates the proper shape and dimensions and everything of a tape, it does actually sit against the capstan. So looks like my only option is to use a cleaning tape. Certainly without taking it apart, but I do have a cleaning tape. I have, for the first time ever, viewed on this channel, the actual all-SOT tape and what it's meant to look like. That's what I was talking about the brushes in the last video. This one probably needs some replacement brushes at some point, but this actually is still adequate. So what you have to do is wet these brushes with IPA. It comes with a little bottle, but I'll just spray because I've got some spray on hand. I like to save the bottle for when I'm out and about, because I do use this to keep our cars regularly clean. So let's chuck this in here and let that do its work. These are always very fascinating to see in motion, because that mechanism drives the little head cleaner backwards and forwards, and the pinch roller and capstan both get brushed by two brushes there. It's a pretty good design, really. It was one of the best they ever made. It's a shame they never brought this back. A lot of the ones you buy nowadays are crap. You can sometimes find these new old stock though, all SOT 3s. Very good system. You normally have to do it for about a minute per side. I tend to do a little bit longer on a deck like this because it's been a long time since it's been in use. But the fact it can move this shows it must have some pretty good tension, as it's making some good torque, because these tapes can be quite difficult for a mechanism to move if it's a bit weak. Okay, I'm going to risk an actual tape. Here's one of my test tapes here, the YouTube Audio Library R&B tape that I've created. Let's see if this plays properly. Let's have a look. Good start. Let's double check. Yeah, okay. Oh. Okay, it got through whatever it was doing there. That's full of wow and flutter. We'll have to measure it later. I do have measurement devices. Okay, well that's working better than it probably has any right to. I mean, some of the wow and flutter could be from stuck components, for example. Jesus, that is very difficult to take apart. Right, so I guess one thing we can do is try and take this front off and actually inspect the mechanism, see what it looks like. Go. Take the dials off. Oh, wow, that was stuck on there. There we go. Luckily, unlike that Pioneer I worked on, these are a little bit less recessed, so I can actually pull them by hand, which is so much easier. That's not always an option, as you will have seen in that video. Sometimes you do have to just pry them off. Another way you can do it if you don't want to pry them, especially if you're not very confident, I've got a bit of experience and I can usually pry a dial off without doing absolutely any scratching to the front of it, which I didn't with that Pioneer. If you're not confident, you can put some electrical tape around a pair of pliers and pull it that way. That also works. Oh, is this gonna... Oh, I probably have to take the bottom bit off. Yeah, I bet I need to take the bottom off. It's probably clipped. It's probably clipped in at the bottom. Definitely minimal screws in this design. They didn't waste a cent, did they? Oh, I've never seen one of those plates stuck like that before. Oh, wow. Yeah, that was actually glued to that wire there. It's definitely not been off before then. Oh, look, there was supposed to be a screw underneath, but that has now gone. I was right, though. It does need clips prying at the bottom, so we'll do that. They usually do. There we go. There we go. That's that off, and we can see the front of it. I haven't seen the backlight bulb yet. It might be one of those horrific ones where it's behind the screen. I hate them. I really do. They're a pain in the butt to sort out. But that now gives us access to the tape deck, so we can take the tape deck out, and hopefully it's not one of those soldered ones where it's got soldered connections. Oh, it was just two. Wow. Again, they've certainly gone for minimal screws in this design. There we go. It does actually unplug. What about the head? Yeah, that all unplugs. That's good. There we go. Oh, it does actually have cast metal flywheels. Yeah, this looks very much like a Tenascion sort of style mechanism, I think. Some of the Blaupunkts and I guess later Philips also use this. Let's have a look at the belt condition. See what that looks like. It does look like it's using actual cast flywheels, which is super nice to see. Like the amount of ones, especially in a sort of low-end vehicle, if you will, such as an LDV, you tend to find just cast plastic, molded plastic flywheels, because, you know, it's a van and you don't get good audio. But this actually has, oh, that would explain the wow and flutter. Wow, I'm amazed that had any torque. Look at that slippage. In fact, I almost wonder if you lubricated this up and put another belt on it, it would probably be okay. I don't know if I've got any spare belts. I might have a spare used one to put in here, because I don't think I've got any more fresh ones anymore. There's nothing wrong with the used one, as long as it's in good shape, of course. Yeah, there's a huge kink in it, and it slips very badly. But other than that, the mechanism looks in pretty good shape. So that's definitely a candidate for fixing up at some point. I'm not going to bother yet, because I have no use for this. I mean, if somebody does, let me know, and, you know, I can fix it up and sell it to you, I suppose. But I don't have a use for this at the moment, so I'll just put it back together. Good to know that it works, though. So if I ever do get an LDV van, which I'd like to get something like a Pilot or a Convoy one day, I could actually put this in it and have the original looking radio, which would be pretty neat. I suppose even a Cub, something like that. It would look quite good in. Commercial vans are something that I grew up a lot with. You know, I grew up with Pilots, Convoys, Cubs, stuff like that. Even the Nissan Serena, which I believe is the Nissan version of the Cub, because the Cub is essentially just a rebranded Serena, I believe. Commercial vehicles in general are something I want to do as time goes on, but we'll see. It can be quite an expensive one to get into, and they're just really hard to find. But there you go. Not too bad of a deck, this one. So this one's perfectly working. So I will put it aside. I'll chuck a note on it to say that we had a look at it. It works, but needs a service. And some bulbs, of course. And yeah, we can move on to the Philips one. So I'll put this back together and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so here's the one I'm the most interested in. The Philips 760. I assume it's probably a 22 DC 760. Yeah, it's a 22 AC 760. I forget some of the older ones are AC. I wonder if DC actually tells you what kind of, if the AC, DC, etc. tells you what kind of mechanism is in it. Because I don't think this has a Philips P6, and the majority of Philips P6 decks have 22 DC in them, although the later ones also have 22 DC in them, so I don't know. I don't know what that means. This one's actually made in Germany, which is interesting. Quite a lot of them are made in France. This sticker needs a bit of a resto, and we'll try and do that, because these stickers always die. I'm slightly worried by this. I hope it's not a coded unit. A lot of the ones after were, but we'll see. You got the DIN socket at the back, which thankfully hasn't been messed with. It's just got some connections here that I can pull out and put my own in. Does it have the CR2032 memory battery in it? Because that's what this bit is. No, they never seem to have the memory battery in them. At least I believe that's what that's for. I could be wrong, but yeah, I'm sure I've seen it in service manuals listed as memory. I didn't know if it was meant to be a CR2032 or something. Do you know what? I don't know. I'm doubting myself now. What does it say on top? Remove transportation screw before mounting. Someone did do that, so, you know, that's something. Anyway, I should have a DIN adapter around here. Yep, there we go, my DIN to ISO block. That should allow us to hook things up. So let's see, I don't have the wiring diagram because unfortunately it's faded off, so it's going to be a little bit of guesswork. Though purples are on that side. Let's pry these out. There we go. There we go, we've got the connections out, so let's try and figure this out. I believe it's left on the left and right on the right. We'll chuck that in. And then we put this bit in. I'll make sure I remember my connections that way. There we go. The other one's powered antenna, so I don't need to worry about that. Yes, ground is always on the outer edge on a DIN connection. Right. Let's start plugging this in. Make sure the memory wire is attached. Although I don't think this one has memory, I could be wrong though. I mean, either way, it is hooked up. This is what I like to call the ignition wire. So let's see if we get anything out of it. So I've turned it on. Let's put that down. Let's hook up the quote-unquote ignition wire and see if we get an output from this. We do not. That is unfortunate. That is the entire reason that I brought this, was for this thing. God damn. Was I wrong about the DIN connection? I don't think I was. No, I don't think so. No, it is actually keyed. Yeah, it is actually keyed, so you can't hook it up wrong. Oh, great. Unless this has a memory wire or something, possibly. Maybe. A lot of these... Maybe it needs a memory wire. I might have to try and find a wiring diagram for you. We get a pop from the amplifier, and when I turn it off, the direction lights do flash. But I get nothing from any of this. Oh! Hello? Okay. Well, it turns on. The buttons work. That's something. Here's the search one. Let's stick it to manual. Yeah, okay, so the buttons work. I'm not getting any audio out of it though. Unless it's a fader issue. Yeah, I'm not getting any audio out of it. Okay, let's hook up the aerial. See if that helps. Might be one of those ones that actually mutes unless there's a signal. No, I don't hear anything from the amplifier. Search. See if it finds a station. It should find something. That LDV radio found something. 5 Live, I believe it finds. That's the strongest signal on AM. There you go, it did find something, but I'm not getting any sound out of it. Oh, I did briefly. Did you hear that?
Semi-regular.
I get something out of it and then it dies.
The shortage. Operating environment.
Why is that? How about if I put my Oh, oh, it does go in. Okay. It's not the happiest stereo. I wonder if it needs some capacitor work, honestly. We set that as P1. There we go. Oh, it tried. That was a bit longer.
Emphasis is now on what Ukraine.
It's going longer each time.
Ukraine doesn't want to concede significant.
I wonder if the mute switch for the tape deck is a little bit iffy. Because if you don't know, there's a mechanical switch in here which actually turns off the tuner's feed to the amplifier to stop it coming on during playback. Every tape deck has this that has a radio. It's normally called the mute switch or FM mute switch, etc. That might be what's causing it. Let's see. No, because it doesn't come back. Mind you, the direction button's not working properly either. That doesn't seem to respond. It's also running way too quickly. Oh, it seems the buttons are stuck, because you're supposed to be able to fast forward and rewind with that. I think it's stuck in rewind, essentially. Yeah. Which could be part of the reason the radio is behaving strangely as well. Maybe I need to try and unplug the tape deck and see what behaves. Okay, let's take it apart and have a look inside. Right, so we're inside the tape deck. It's quite a stout mechanism, this one. It definitely looks a little bit stronger than a Philips P6. It's all like metal construction. You can tell it's very much a sort of product of the late 70s, early 80s. Okay. I guess we probably want to start with taking the front fascia off. I mean, I also noticed when I got it that this is stuck. So I don't know if that's related to some kind of indignity it suffered, because that should spring load back down. In fact, if I press it. So that's actually the position it should be in, but it keeps flopping back out. So that's certainly very suspicious. Right, so let's start prying these dials off. There we go. Oh, this one actually has a light pipe built into it. Either that or the light pipe just fell out of it. I'm not sure exactly. No, I think it is meant to be in there. Yeah, because it is just a dial, isn't it? I probably want to lubricate it, though, because it was very stiff. Very, very stiff. That came off very easily. Luckily, these are the same as the later decks, so if I need to replace these, I do have a stockpile of these, because I've got a Vauxhall version of a 751 that has a cracked screen that's a good donor, and of course has cracked flywheels because it's Philips P6. Right, so the first thing to do is get this side bit off here, if it'll show it. There we go. Let's unscrew that. That should allow us to start taking the front panel off once we've got these two side bits. Keep them together. These are also the radio key plates. Holy crap. Whoa. That one's in there. What the heck? Whoa. Okay. Oh my god, I've never come across one of these that wouldn't turn before. I'm going to have to lubricate that. Let's put a bit of release spray on it. Maybe let that cook for a while. It does look like it's very well attached. There's a huge crevice, like it was driven in at the factory way too hard. Goodness. I've never encountered one of those that never came off before. That's bad. Oh my god. It is completely... It's stripping. This screw is actually stripping. I might have to drill this out or something. That's crazy. I have never seen one behave like this before. Well, this might be my first time using a hammer to get into a stereo. Right, I need to like put the wide angle lens on because I need to show the ridiculousness of this situation here. Oh, no movement. Damn it. Nope, it doesn't move. That's it, it's gone. There's nothing left. I thought I was getting somewhere with the hammer, but it still rounded, and it rounded the last of what was left when I tried to do it again. All of my drill bits are way too big, so this will be a deeply unpleasant time. You really should step drill bits, but I don't have that option. Are we through it? Okay. We're through it. Can we wind out? Oh my god, I think the screw's winding out. Okay, no, we're making some progress. We're making some progress. Oh my god, finally. Finally, this idiot has come out. Wow, I cannot believe that. I have never encountered one that difficult to take off, so maybe someone over-tightened it, maybe it wasn't at the factory. Like, I've come across ones that are difficult, like really difficult to turn, but this one, I've never had one break like that before. That's bad. Thankfully, the drill managed to get it though, and we didn't actually cause any damage, which was a big, big win, because I genuinely thought we'd have to cause some bad damage, so... Right, next step, take the bottom bit off. There's bits of metal from the drill everywhere that I'm going to have to tidy up. Yay! Right, let's get this bottom panel off. I keep forgetting I have a wide-angle lens. It would probably help everybody viewing see a lot of stuff, so we'll do this with a wide angle. Yeah, like you can see this a lot better. Obviously it's going to be fish-eyed to heck, but at least you can see what I'm doing. Oh my goodness, come on, there we go. Right, this should allow us to get the clip underneath to take the bottom pan off. There we go, these come apart just like the other 700 series. There we go. God, you can tell that's an early circuit board. What a beautiful colour. It's like a bronzy colour. Lovely. Alright, let's get this out. So these should unclip. Emphasis on should. There we go. And we're out. The front panel came off without too much grief, which is good because it's in really good shape. Like, this will clean up really well. Right, looks like it's got the familiar 700 series screen. What's really rare about this one is it doesn't have the usual blotching they often end up with, which was another reason I was quite excited for it. Yeah, that spring is supposed to be underneath there, so that'll be quite easy to sort. I just need to take this door off and do it again, or at least reconfigure that spring, so we can sort that. That's easy enough. What we need to do now, though, is try and get the tape mechanism out. So I need to try and see how that's done. Looks like 3 screws. One there, and one there. So let's see what happens. Right, so our first course of action, I guess, would be to disconnect this connector. So I think does it pull out of this channel? Maybe? Yes? No? Possibly? There we go. Yep. Okay, that wasn't too difficult. Is that enough to pull it? I think the other connections in here are also related, so let's try and pry them out. There we go, finally. Oh, wow, that's beautiful. Solid brass flywheels. Gorgeous. See, why did Philips have to change this? This was good quality. Like, look at that. This is never going to go wrong. Like, none of this is broken. Like, this is never going to go wrong. And that's probably why they replaced it, because the bean counters said, oh, that's not going to sell new radios. I don't like that this bit's seized. Is it meant to be? I feel like that would move separately. So yeah, I need to look into this. The belts look like they're in surprisingly good shape. A little bit. No, there is actually quite a bit of slippage on that. Okay, yeah, there is quite a bit of slippage. Even so, like, just seeing those beautiful brass flywheels, it's nice to see a Philips deck that actually could be decent, you know? I thought all, like, Philips decks from the 80s were just going to be P6 junk, but not this. Although this has its own problems, as we saw. Like, why is it stuck in reverse? And Is that not designed to move? Let's pull this off so we don't damage the plastic. I need to try and see if we can. Yeah, like that looks like it would move separately. Let's put a tape in there. Maybe it's something not... Oh, no, there you go. Why was that different that time? Maybe it was just a belt problem? Because now it does move. Yeah. Obviously, you push together to eject it. Ooh, that was a bit weird. Right. So now that works. Maybe it was just a belt situation? Okay. Maybe we'll stick another belt on it and see what it does. Because obviously I am actually interested in this one, so I am actually going to spend the effort to see if I've got any belts that fit it. What a gorgeous mechanism, though. At least it means it was worth getting into, because we might actually be able to fix this one. This is a good sign.
A rare handwritten copy of one of the most famous love poems ever written has been discovered.
Like, it actually seems to work now, so maybe the mechanism was stuck in some kind of limbo from that slipping belt. So maybe if we replace the belt, we can actually get this to fully function, which would be awesome, because I really want to put this in something I own. Take this belt off. How is it looking? Surprisingly not that bad. That one might be reusable. It doesn't even look that kinked. But we know this one isn't. Need one a little bit tighter than that. I might even go for one a little bit bigger than that because it may increase torque. So let's have a look through my wild belt collection and see what we've got. This one seems very thick, maybe too thick. We'll see. Actually, this seems a bit closer. Yeah, this seems a bit more like it. Yeah. And that's gone on there really well. Yeah, that might be the one. Yeah, that grips pretty well without gripping too much. Yeah, I think we might have found the one. Okay, so there's potentially the main drive one. So here was the non-drive one. I think I found like thousands of that size. So let's see what we've got. Yeah, in fact, thinking about how tight that is probably about right. I mean, it seems to drive the mechanism all right, so we've got half a chance. So I guess let's just see what that does. See if that helps anything at all. Let's put the original belts aside, just in case we have to come back to that reference. Right, let's have a look. Yes, they do actually work individually now. That feels pretty good at the moment as well. So let's see what we get. Good, we got static. Oh, why is it? Hey, the direction button's working, kind of. Yeah. Hey, okay. Well, let's stick a cleaning tape through it and see what happens. Oh my goodness, it sounds great! Listen to that! And it's playing at the right speed for this song as well, I think. Oh, that's brilliant! See, we took this from a non-working tape deck to a completely perfectly working one. Oh, that's brilliant news. Because like I say, this is the one I wanted to work. Like, this is awesome news. Listen to that, it sounds perfect. What about the other side? Right, I need to fast forward it a bit because it's at the end of the tape. One moment, please. Yeah, it works in the other direction as well. Oh, a bit wobbly. It might be the pinch rollers slipping, so we'll take it apart and give it a proper clean, maybe. But performance is not bad. considering all I've done is put a belt on it, I haven't even lubricated any of it or cleaned it that thoroughly, and you could already kind of listen to this. I've just taken this tiny little bit of red plastic off over here, which was holding on this pulley, so we can get underneath it and clean it, and then relubricate it with some oil. My choice is just a syringe, because it helps get into little places like that. You can buy syringes like this quite easily online. A lot of people use them for refilling printer ink cartridges. It's just because you've got that nice little tiny pipe that can get into those spaces, and it also helps not dispense too much as well, because it's very easy to over oil this and then it gets everywhere and you've got to spend hours cleaning it up. Got to make sure the pulleys themselves are quite clean. I might grab a brush for that. Yeah, here we go, the same brush I used last time. So we've got to keep them pulleys clean, especially because detritus from old belts almost always gets in there. So I want to make sure we're cleaning these channels out so they're in pristine condition for the new belt. And like I say, I will also try and take as much of this apart as I can to try and like lubricate underneath these and stuff like that. So we'll see what we can do with that in a minute. There you go, that's much better. So now I need to put the little white disc back on, as it's a little sleeve one. So I need to put the little white disc back on, because it's essentially sort of a slip sheet, if you will, so it can help slip on it. You just want to put like a little touch of oil. There you go. That already was quite a lot. I don't know if you saw that, you probably didn't really, but it was already quite a lot. Let's see if I can get a nice view of this. It's going to go everywhere if I'm not careful. There we go. That spins really good in there now. It's stuff like that just helps things to be that just little bit more smooth, you know? That spins really good now. That's brilliant. Now we've got to put the little red cap back on. I find that you can stick them to your fingers, or you can use a pair of tweezers. It's not the end of the world. I tend to use a pair of tweezers for application and also for removal as well. There you go. That moves really nicely now. Need to do the same for this one so I can demonstrate what I didn't show earlier. So what I'll do is I slot the tweezers just underneath the little disc with my finger to stop it going flying, and then just once you've got it underneath, pry upwards. And there we go. We got it out. And then put it somewhere safe, because you will not believe how easy they are to lose. So I popped mine over to the other side. We can lift this out, and there you go. We can see the next little slip bit. We can inspect the gears as well. Probably have to zoom out. Oh no, I am already zoomed out. Is it going to focus? Kind of. You can see the gears are in. The gear is in pretty good shape, so we don't need to worry about that. Yeah, there's very little wear on it. Right, again, I want to take the little white disc out. The reason being is because the isopropyl alcohol can go underneath it, and then it can sometimes not go away, and that's quite annoying. Again, put that somewhere safe, because you definitely don't want to lose it, because otherwise you're very negatively going to affect the way that works. Spray some isopropyl alcohol onto a cotton swab, and just sort of go at it and clean it the best you can. Want it as spotless as it can possibly be. The cleaner, the more cleaner it is, the less likely it is to drag. And any bit of drag will add wow and flutter. It's not a case of if, it will. Any kind of unnecessary drag will slowly start to pull it outside of specification. Just sort of leaving that for now. Again, hopefully the tweezers should manage to get this off. This is going to be very difficult to show, so I apologise, because I'm trying to focus on not losing it. There we go, because they do like to fly away. That's one. Then we need to disband the spring. There we go. Stick that over there. And then this should come off, in theory. Oh, it's bound on the other side as well. That's okay. We can just move it out of the way to get to the ones underneath, so that's fine. I do have to make sure these resynchronize, though. That is quite important. Yes, I don't want to detime these. This is why these jobs are sometimes quite unpleasant, because of what you end up having to do. You end up getting severe mission creep. Oh, interesting, this one doesn't have the sort of slip sheet. We'll put a small touch of oil on there. I do mean a small touch. There we go. Just enough to sort of lightly coat the shaft that it's going onto. The question is, does it need any grease underneath? Judging how nicely that spins, I would say no, because I think if we add any grease underneath now, what we'll actually end up doing is making it drag. So I believe it just needs oil and that's it. We'll leave the rest of it alone. There we go. That now spins very freely. Good damn. Luckily I've got lots of references of what this looked like before, so it should be quite easy to retime this. I have accidentally detimed a few mechanisms in the past, especially loading mechanisms, which is kind of what that is. They're not rocket science to put back. It just sometimes takes a few tries if you don't have a great point of reference or if you don't quite get it perfect. But it's always doable. It's just trial and error. So if you do desynchronize something when you're working on stereos, don't worry too much, especially if you're like me and you're taking pictures. Or video in this case, then don't worry too much. You'll be able to figure it out. So just want to get a dab of oil onto this. There we go. You might have just noticed I stuck a dab on there. There we go. Now we slip the gear back on. Everything's trying to get in my way. That spins very nicely. Good stuff. So I'm going to go look at my references and go put all this back, and I'll be right back with you. There we go, it didn't take too long. I was just able to look at a photograph I took, and in this position, that is pretty much exactly where those gears need to be. I mean, we'll find out. It'll either load or it won't. The main thing is to make sure your disengage area is disengaging when it's supposed to, and that should allow for that. We will double check, of course, though. But that's pretty much it for that bit. So now we need to put the very fiddly C-clip back on, which I'm sure will fight me to the death. They often do. That doesn't seem quite right, that one. Yeah, that's not quite right. Don't think that's quite ended up in the right spot. Looks like I need to try again. There we go. That's a bit more like it. So let's try that again. Yep, there you go. It now properly disengages. Because obviously this will be spinning the whole time. That's why the little slots in them are important. Because they need to disengage so they don't keep trying to engage. So when this one goes back around, yep, that disengages properly. Let me try and demonstrate this. So when that's spinning around there, you can see that locks into place, and then you can see that gap comes up so that it can no longer interface with the gear. And then it turns to the other side, and the little gap turns up there, and there you go, there's no scraping or anything. Cool, so you see that as long as you've got references, everything normally will fall into place after some trial and error. Also, do bear in mind, which has just happened right now, sometimes the little white slip thing will actually end up on the cog. So just make sure you get that realigned properly if that happens, which I have. That's super smooth, that's really good, yeah. That's super smooth. So I might not grease that, because they essentially have a fabric clutch which works a bit like a car clutch. It's designed to, and it's designed to put a very specific amount of force on as well. So if you get any grease or oil into that clutch, you can potentially completely destroy your tape deck. I learnt this when I was younger, because when I didn't know a lot about tape decks, I ended up gluing a clutch because I thought it was slipping, and the tape deck played too fast because the clutch is designed to sort of grip in a certain way, if you will. That was an old Iowa. So ever since then, I've been very careful not to upset the clutches. It is important. Speaking of important, I'm just making sure that that lines up. The oil seems to stick it to the gear, so good. Yeah, that'll be fine. So one of our next steps is trying to get access into here so we can get to the pinch rollers if possible. So let's see what we can do. Normally these plates come off as one. They don't always, but hopefully this one will. Let's see what we can do. Right, is that enough to take that off? Oh, it certainly moves. What about you? You don't seem massively keen to come off, do you? No, not really. I don't mind if it only comes out slightly. We've also got some... Oh, God. Well, it's out now. Luckily, I did manage to find the service manual, and I think that has demystified some of it for sure. I definitely need to make sure I record the next few segments, though, to try not to mess any of this up. Okay, that's good. That doesn't have a certain way up that it goes. That bushing interfaces with something... Well, that bushing interfaces with up here. Yeah, this bit. So that's nice and easy to remember. And that actually controls the entirety of this bit. See? It actually controls the entirety of the head sliding. So this mechanism is called the D6. So this is obviously the one that came before the P6, and yeah, in my opinion, much better mechanism. The P6 is a lot easier to service the flywheels on because they clip into place, which is a nice idea because it does make that a little bit easier. This is a lot more difficult because you have to do quite in-depth disassembly. It looks like it's got a very tiny little C-clip that I've got to take out. Yay. And it's spinning around and fighting me. Extra yay. Okay, no, we got it. We got it. That wasn't too bad. Right, so let's get this spring look. Let's get a nice close-up of where that spring goes. There you go. We'll undo that. There we go, we got it. I'm probably going to have to reshape that afterwards. Oh no, it looks okay. We'll put it over there with the other springs. Right, so that should allow us to take this pinch roller out. There we go. It's not in bad shape, honestly. I think it will clean up quite well because it still has some of the matte finish, so definitely worth getting this out and seeing what we can do with it. Yeah, you can see that's still got a reasonably good matte finish. There's not even too much cracking, which is good to see. This has like contact pads here. Oh my goodness, look at this. There's like contact pads. Oh, this thing is very much an onion. We are very much peeling apart a very complicated onion. This has like a brass washer that's countersunk, and oh my god, there's so much to this damn thing. I've got a spring to figure out where to go, so hopefully the service manual will be able to shed a little bit of light on that situation. I hope. Right, hopefully this now moves a bit better. The exploded diagram is a mess as well, like it's super complex. It's an absolute mess. There are not enough words in the English dictionary to describe the pain I just went through putting this back together. It probably took me over an hour, but I managed to figure it all out and get it all right. One of the biggest hurdles was some of the spring-loaded contacts, obviously figuring out where some of the lost springs and stuff had gone. Thankfully, I managed to figure that out, and then I spent ages fighting with like voltage regulator thing because it has like an isolation layer between what it heat sinks to, which is weird. So I guess the isolation layer must be thermally conductive, but it looks like plastic, but it's fibrous. I don't know. I went through hell just now, but it is back together and all the functions do work. So you'll have noticed I booted up a machine here. That's because we're finally going to get into the adjustment portion of the video, or at least we will do. So what I'm going to bring up here is WFGUI, also known as Wow and Flutter Graphical User Interface, or Software Wow and Flutter Meter. This is free software, you can get it online super easily. I'll set it to 0.1, let's be realistic. So this will measure how consistent the music playing is. Obviously, because I've worked on this with a magnetic screwdriver, I finally get to show off my demagnetizer. Essentially what this does is it uses an AC signal to remove an AC electromagnet to remove any residual magnetism the screwdriver may have left behind. The reason this is important is because it can reduce the performance of your cassette deck. It can slowly begin to erase the cassettes over time, or certainly reduce their output level, which is basically slowly erasing them. So this is really important to do, especially on I probably should have done it in the beginning because I didn't know the kind of history and stuff it's had. But yes, we're going to demagnetize all of this to make sure it's got a nice clean signal. It doesn't take long, normally about 5 seconds, and then you have to slowly pull it away so it equalizes. And this has a Euro plug as well, so I've got a Euro plug adapter. So there's no switch on this, and then I just pull it out. The reason we don't leave this plugged in is because this will run the entire time, and they can get so hot. I've heard of stories of them burning holes through people's carpets, so never leave a head demagnetizer on. Always turn it off when you're done with it. You should never need to run it for any more than about a minute at most anyway, and that's if you're doing lots of decks or a particularly tough magnetized one. And you can use compasses and things like that to check as well. I have done that in the past. You want to check if it's really bad. But I'm just going to go all over this with the head demagnetizer, and then we can finally calibrate the wow and flutter, and maybe the azimuth while we're at it. Another thing to bear in mind is never demagnetize a tape deck while it's powered on, because you can blow out the head preamp potentially. Right, so you might be able to hear some humming as I sort of run it round everything. Sort of make sure everything's nice and demagged. Going from the front as well. Just make sure it's a nice, clean, demagnetized deck. Now I'll slowly work my way up, because I've been in this quite a bit. And when you're about a meter away or so, you can then unplug it, which you would have heard me doing just there. So it's been fully demagnetized, so it means it's safe to put my test cassettes in now. Speaking of test cassettes, I use these ones. So this is the wow and flutter cassette, and this is the azimuth cassette. You can get these on eBay, or at least you could a few years ago. I don't know if you still can. Hopefully you can, because my azimuth cassette has been magnetized a little bit. Although I have used it to adjust my main recording cassette deck. So that does in theory mean I could recreate this using my deck. The reason you would want to use this first before you ended up creating your own azimuth tape is you need a reference point, because whatever azimuth, which by azimuth I mean the angle of the tape head, because if it's not at the right angle, the tracks on the tape will not be properly aligned with the head. So azimuth adjustment's super important if you want maximum performance from your cassettes. And the reason I say you need a reference point like this first, this is essentially what they call an industry standard. So there is an industry standard that everyone's cassette deck should be adjusted to. And these guys on eBay make it from like original industry standard ones. So what you then do is you do your main recording deck with this, and then you can actually use your recording deck to make some more, as long as your azimuth stays nice and tightly adjusted on it. So super important cassette if you want to get good alignment. Hopefully in the video I will go into this a little bit more. My main focus at the moment is getting the speed correct. I will say azimuth really matters if your cassette deck has Dolby B noise reduction, because with a poorly aligned azimuth you can end up with so much treble loss, because Dolby B noise reduction should actually sound about as good as the source material. But if your azimuth is incorrect, then it just doesn't. It's a complete waste of time. But yeah, for now we're going to focus on wow and flutter. So essentially what wow and flutter is wow is kind of like wow, wow. So really slow speed deviations, whereas flutter's like wow, 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 wow. So much faster speed sort of deviations. So this cassette deck, which essentially has some stable tones on it, what the software will tell me is how much stability that's playing the tone at. The thing is, with a tape deck, there will always be some wow and flutter. There's pretty much almost never zero, because it's an analog mechanical system. There's always going to be some margin of error. But there are acceptable limits. In my opinion, we're looking for 0.15 to 0.18 as like a worst case scenario. Anything lower than that's considered really good. Like, for example, my direct drive Technics gets 0.004. So that's like very low. But if we get 0.15 to 0.18, I'll be fairly happy with it. I don't know what the factory specs were. Hold on. Let's have a look. In the service manual, it should say. So the factory spec is 0.35, so quite a massive margin of error there. And in my opinion, once you get to 0.35, it starts becoming audible. At least it does for me. Anyway, let's get this fired up. Let's start the software. Right, let's pop this in. And this tape deck has, which is a really cool feature, separate adjustments for both forwards and backwards. So that's going to be super useful. Right, so let's do forwards first, which is that pot. I have to be careful because it's close to a lot of things. Oh yeah, we got something on the screen. What have we got? 0.21 at the moment, and it's playing the 3000 hertz tone at 3087, so we need to turn it down. Oh, that's up. I like to do about 3003, 3004, 3005. Yeah, see, that's pretty good. Okay, so it's within factory spec, because it's, what, 0.24 at the moment, so that's not awful. Well, the speed's drifting a bit. You notice the speed has dropped from 0.5 already. I mean, 3003 is where I want it, but it's still going. It's probably because the voltage regulator is warming up. I do find that sometimes some voltage regulators and even some motors do end up with quite a bit of speed drift. I have to turn this up slightly. That's too much. That's probably too little. Okay, let's see where it settles from there. Sometimes I tap these to make sure that they are settled. Oh, it's gone up to 0.3. That's quite high all of a sudden. Okay, that's not awful. It's not fantastic performance, but it is actually within factory specs, so let's turn it to the other side. Obviously that's playing way too fast. We'll probably need to do side 1 again, or side A after that again, or forward rather. A lot of the times when you're adjusting one side, you end up having to adjust the other. 3006, 3008, that's not too bad. Oh, overblew it a bit there. 3008, 3007. Can we tighten that down a little bit? Oh, that's up. No, that's too far. God, this is touchy. Okay, that's pretty good now. So we must be getting closer. Oh dear, the connection is being a bit funky. It doesn't help that those spring-loaded switches are pretty inaccurate. They're really not very accurate. 3001, 3002, 3003. Yeah, that's pretty good. There you go, I think we've pretty much got it now. Okay. I'm going to fast forward and then rewind the tape, and we'll move on to azimuth. So, I've had a listen to some of my favourite tapes and stuff, in both forward and reverse, and I've established that, yeah, it's about exactly where I want it to be. So, I'm happy with that. So let's move on to azimuth adjustment. Right, so here's the piece of software I use for azimuth adjustment. It's called Audio Tester. It's about 40 euros for a license, but for me, it's paid itself off years ago. So, and it's one-time license as well, so it's awesome. Made by a German developer, I believe. So let's put the azimuth tape in there, and I'll explain what we need to do. So what we're looking for is we want the peak of each line to be in line with each other. So at the moment, it's ever so slightly off. Let's see if we can tighten that up. And there's a little screw that you adjust it with. You can see it moving as I adjust it. That seems a bit more correct. There you go, about there looks about right. So I'm going to have another listen with a pair of headphones and see what I think. Finally, after all this time, it's sorted. So, one of our next things to do is to sort out why it's not lighting up, because I'm pretty sure there's some bulbs back there. So we're going to start to take this front bit off and see what we can do. Okay, So first things first, we need to get the ribbon cable off, which is very standard 700 practice. So this ribbon cable is just a press on here. They're normally pretty reliable. They will normally work perfectly fine again after they've been apart, so hopefully this one does too. I'll make sure the contacts on the board are nice and clean. There we go. And I think there's one on the front. And then once we've got all of this, the entire thing should just come off the front. That's sort of what it wants to do. Why can I not? Thank you. Oh, there's a washer that's stuck. Come on. There we go. Need to put that back with that screw. There we go. Right, we got any more screws that I'm missing? Maybe from this bit. So this bit needs to be unplugged, I believe. So unplug that. I don't know if it unclips. It does unclip. I can see the clips are in the back. So I need to gently depress the clips in. And it should just pull. Yep, there we go. Let me pull that through there. Hopefully. Wow, they've given me basically no room. There we go. That's out. And then there's one last screw to take out in there. And then we can get this front bit off and start looking at our bulb situation. See what we need. Here we go. There's only one bulb in the entire thing, and it's that one. Sorry about the clock there. There's only one bulb in the entire system, just that one. So that's the only bulb I actually need to replace. Well, that should be easy enough. I'm surprised, there's normally like one at the other end, but no, there isn't, is there? It just uses the entirety of the light pipe to do all the work. Wow. Well, let's get that sorted. There is room for another bulb on the other side though, so maybe I could retrofit a second bulb. Mind you, is there room for a second bulb? I don't know if there is. Let me see. I know a lot of the later ones have got another bulb there, but they might have the room for it. This probably doesn't. No, it would, actually. No, it would have enough room. And what I'll do, because I don't have any rubber things that size, I normally just draw on them in green whiteboard marker. Now, you may laugh, but one of my stereos has been that way since 2023 and is still spot on. So it does work. Let's get some flux on there. Thankfully, I do seem to have enough desoldering braid left. Which, if you don't know, is this stuff. It just helps wick up the solder. So if you don't have one of those solder sucker sort of piston things or one of those desoldering guns, you can use this. And as I haven't got desoldering gun money at the moment, I still use this. I've never got on with those piston suction things though. They've never worked properly for me. I don't know why, they just don't like me. So I tend to use desoldering wick. Hasn't quite got that yet. Come on. Might need to reflow it again. No, we got it. We got it. There you go. That has now released the pads. Hopefully the bulb should just pull out now. Weirdly, Philips do clip them in with an annoying bulb holder. There we go. It's out. Can we see any of the failure modes? Yeah, I think I can see that the element's missing. Yeah. Ah, yeah. It's blown on one side. Look, if you look, they've still got one on that side, but it doesn't have one on that side. Oh dear. Quite a big bulb. This will help to get any ingrained dust and grime out of the buttons. There we go. Yep, that's done a pretty good job because these buttons are textured, so they do tend to hold quite a bit of grime. For polish, I use Mr. Sheen. It's fantastic stuff. It will clean anything and everything, and it never seems to attack anything either. And also leaves a pleasant smell. It's cleaning it up pretty well. I don't know if there's a few scuffs at that outer edge there, possibly. That's quite common, where the screen's been rubbing against the sort of outer bezel for 40 odd years. You can end up with a bit of a bit of crap there. There you go. As you can see, there's, if I go back to this, there is a line at the edge there where the bezel's been attacking it slightly, but it's not too bad overall. You can barely see it, but it is lit up. Now, I wouldn't say it's lighting up much of the screen though. Yeah, I'm not sure that's massively visible, honestly. Maybe there is meant to be more bulbs in here. Maybe there's a bulb on that bit, because that's really not lighting that section up. It's actually showing up better on camera. Some of that's the retro reflectiveness, but yeah, I cannot read that screen at night. That's a bit more like it. It actually lights up the screen now. So that's looking a lot better. So yeah, let's clean it up and get it put back together. Now for the magic moment. And there it is. That looks fantastic. Look at that. So this was genuinely a tough video for me. I spent hours on this Philips tape deck. I started at 11 AM yesterday. I filmed 3 hours, but I didn't actually officially say I was finished until about, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock at night. So I spent the entire day pretty much just trying to figure out what was wrong with this Philips, because when I stopped filming, I was trying to diagnose a problem that this damn thing still has. And I don't know if it's capacitors or some kind of logic problem, because someone's obviously been in here. We know that from the tape door that was wrong, which has now been fitted correctly. But I don't know what's wrong with it. It has a massive auto reverse problem. So if I put a tape in here, you can see the left one's lighting up. But if I press the reverse button, it lights up both arrows and doesn't reverse. And you can press that as many times as you want. It doesn't care. The same's even true of pressing rewind. It starts to do that, and then it starts fast forwarding. Like, this is not rewinding right now, this is fast forwarding. Like, so there's clearly something very wrong with this tape deck, and I don't really, like, this video's long enough, I don't want to go into this anymore. It's been long enough. You know, parts are unobtainium, so I can't just go out and buy things. I don't want to shoot the parts cannon anyway. It needs a more in-depth investigation, or I need to find a parts unit to try and make one good one. That's probably the route I want to go down, especially because, like I said, a lot of these have like busted screens. So, you know, maybe if the next one comes up with a busted screen, I can go buy it and maybe it'll have a good tape deck. I don't know. Like I say, I'm done for now. This was crazy. I can't. And this is what it's like. Like, even before I was filming videos, sometimes I would spend days just working on a radio, trying to get to the bottom of whatever the problem was, and still not succeeding. Like, quite a lot of the radios up here, for example, are waiting for their day where I buy things like an LCR meter, some proper pros for the oscilloscope, and learn how to actually use it beyond playing those funny music things through it. so I can actually probe like logic and stuff with it. And the LCR meter means I can test capacitors, so I don't just throw money replacing like 30 to 50 capacitors in something and then hoping for the best. Because an LCR meter will actually tell you pretty much if a capacitor's bad, like whether it's out of value and how high its internal resistance is. Because if its internal resistance is high, then it's not going to be very effective, and that can cause a lot of the issues. It could even be causing the issues with this. I don't know, but I need an LCR tester to actually verify that rather than just throwing capacitors at it. Especially because this has the old school axial capacitors, and I think they're not particularly easy to get anymore. Not to mention the fact that, you know, I've got to find them in that exact form factor, and yeah, they're probably going to be expensive as well. So, you know, I don't want to fire the parts cannon. It's some of the worst things you can do, and I've been guilty of that in the past, and it can absolutely deflate you when you've spent so much money on something for it to still not work. So that's why, unfortunately, I'm going to have to spend so much money buying the equipment to actually check this, to then decide if I have to spend so much money. But at least the equipment will pay for itself, because obviously there's piles and piles of radios here that need fixing. In fact, there's a JVC there where the radio distorts after a certain amount of time. I'm almost certain that's capacitors, because it's really gradual, like as the capacitor sort of charges up and warms up maybe, so that sounds very capacitors. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the Ford radio because I genuinely think this one is a video in itself. Like, I've got to sort that wiring out, and it's quite complex to take this apart because I've got to desolder things, as I said, and this video's long enough, it's already over an hour. So the LTV one was a good win. As I say, I don't have a massive use for it yet, but either way, it'll go in the collection for now in case somebody else has a use for it, or I have a use for it in the future, or just as parts, you know, we'll see how it goes. I've still got a lot to learn. You know, this is only, what, year 5 of me doing radio repairs, and when I first started out in 2020, I wasn't the best. I had been doing some radio repairs on and off as far back as 2015, possibly, maybe 2014, but they were pretty limited, and most of those just involved replacing belts. This is a lot more advanced than I used to be, and I'm still learning a lot of stuff, so I apologise if I didn't explain things properly. I'm trying to do that better, because I know people want better explanations of stuff. The problem is, when you have to learn such a complex and technical topic, sometimes learning how to break it down is almost as difficult as learning it in the first place. So I'm still learning on how to break things down and stuff like that. So if you have any comments where you'd like a bit more clarification on something, let me know, because maybe I can research a way to clarify it better. But yeah, and also if I suppose you're an expert from, you know, back in the day or even currently, and you want to give me some tips and tricks, you know, what I did well, what I could do better, that sort of thing, I'm up for listening to that. You know, a healthy discussion around these things is good. That's how we all learn. But yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video of some sort. It's definitely been a trip. There will be more radio repairs in the future. They're probably going to slim down for now, because a lot of the radio repairs here, as I say, are now requiring complex measuring equipment to make sure I don't just throw money at them. But if I get any more in, you know, fresh or whatever, I'll still do these videos where we have a look at them, like we did here, and sort of see what they do and what sort of general condition they're in, because I believe that's still a valuable part of the troubleshooting process. Just establishing what you have first, which was the point of this video until I went full on trying to restore the Philips, and yeah, you know how that worked out. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.